Welcome everybody to the EDM Prodcast. This is a show where we interview artists, producers, and any industry experts in the realm of electronic music production who we believe can help you grow as an artist. Now, my name is Aidan Russell. I am the general manager here at EDM Prod, and I also produce and DJ under the name Artsy. Now, as always, this episode is brought to you by EDM Foundations. It is our course for new producers where you practically learn the fundamentals of electronic music production by making professional grade tracks in different styles, and so you can actually walk away with solid skills that put you in good stead for being able to make your own originals. If you're a new producer who's struggling to get those basic skills down, whether it's just putting together a loop or finishing your first song, EDM Foundations systematically will take you through each step of the production process and give you all the tools you need. So if you want to learn how to make electronic music, head to edmfoundations.com to learn more. Now, today we have a special guest on the EDM Prodcast. We have Party with Ray. Now, Freddy, also known as Party with Ray, is a producer and DJ from LA, and he's come from this world of indie rock and kind of bands, and in the last couple of years focused this new project on electronic music, collaborating with people like Zoo, and already growing massive amounts of fans with his signature style of slow, dark house music. Now, in this interview, we talk about not only his background, we talk about how he had some really cool achievements, such as his sync deal with Marvel and how his tune with Zoo, Down for the Low, got placed in the new Marvel, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, which I think is a really cool achievement. We talk about how he moved from his indie background to electronic music and the challenges he faced. And he has a few really cool one-liners, which I think a lot of producers can take away. So stay tuned for the whole episode because you'll really hear these cool nuggets he has to say. One really thing I really appreciate about his attitude towards music is that he just keeps it fun, and you will see that reflected in his name and his whole attitude towards production. So this is a really good episode. Can't wait to jump into the EDM Prodcast 162 with Party with Ray. All right, everyone. Welcome to the EDM Prodcast. Today we are joined by Party with Ray. How's it going, man?
Good. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Good to have you on there, man. And it's afternoon there, so you're just chilling out, enjoying things.
Yeah, having a little drink here. It's the evening time, so.
Nice. You been up to much this week?
This week, just still recovering from the, on Friday was the EP release.
Nice.
And the EP release party that I was throwing that night, but then we also, Zoo had a secret set at Nocturnal, this Insomniac Festival out in San Bernardino. So
Oh, cool.
I went out with him before my party, and he brought me up for Lil Mama, which was dope during the secret set. And then I just jumped in a car and went straight to the venue. Got there 20 minutes before my set. The party was popping, so it was great.
Awesome.
And and then the next morning, man, we were up late, and then one of my best friends was getting married the next day.
Oh, wow.
So we woke up at 9:30 a.m. and drove to the wedding and stayed up again to party.
Wow.
So yeah, just been recovering and starting to get back into work mode today, though.
Yeah, fair. Sounds like a very full weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, we packed it in.
Yeah.
The secret set, the secret set appearance definitely came together in the last week before, but
Nice.
it was possible and we made it work, so it was cool.
That's sick, man. Nah, so good. Awesome. So, I mean, I guess for those of you who don't know you, quick little background. Obviously, you've come up in the last couple years in your own right, and initially through a collaboration with Zoo, who's been a frequent collaborator of yours, actually. And and now you've just released your Party Starters EP, which we'll dive into a bit at the end of the episode because I have some cool questions around how that came about. But for those of you who, for those people out there who are listening and haven't quite heard of you, do you just want to dive into your musical background and how you kind of got to where you are today? I suppose.
Yeah, well, before just quick before Party with Ray, I was in like indie rock bands, and I was
Right.
a singer and guitar player, and actually drums was my first instrument. So
Wow.
like rhythm was always just a huge part of what I was doing as a songwriter. And went through a couple different phases, had a college band, and then in 2019 was when Came for the Low came out, and that was my first song. It was a collab with Zoo, as
Mm.
Party with Ray, and just fit. I would say like getting into this style, like coming from a place of songwriting where it was about like big choruses and
Mm.
vocal harmonies, bright guitars, guitar solos. Like I really was so fascinated by the low. Like I loved the low end of club music,
Yeah.
and that's like definitely part of where that Came for the Low came from. So it's definitely like, and then when I wrote that, I was like, oh man, I think like I have something here. Like that was one of the
Yeah.
first things that I wrote as Party with Ray. So like I've been writing songs for a long time, and like you just sort of feel it like, all right, there's something cool here. And then obviously when I, showed it to Zoo and he put his magic on it, like, it became the song that was put out.
Mm.
But yeah, like really I've been making music for a long time, and it just sort of let this project like come about pretty naturally.
Yeah.
Um and just sort of, Came for the Low was one of the first things I wrote, and then I was just, DJing, living here in LA. Like I would also say just so many people I knew like weren't really playing in bands anymore. I mean, there's definitely still
Yeah.
bands, but maybe it was just my social circles, I'm not sure what, but I was like, I just want to DJ with my friends. Like what, like
Yeah.
I just want to like hang out, like party with my friends. And so the project like definitely came from a place of like just not taking itself too seriously, and like
Mm.
um just yeah, I mean I think that's a huge part of it, like just letting the songs come. And like
Yeah.
what's so cool about DJing is you get to mix in, like if you're not feeling any of your own music at the moment or whatever, you can just play other favorite stuff from other people, and it's like can
Yeah.
be very inspiring. So um yeah, that's sort of like where the project was born out of, for sure.
That's cool. That's cool. Had you always lived in LA, or is that somewhere you moved later on?
I grew up outside Boston,
Right.
and
Cool.
then Boston, Massachusetts, and then I moved here when I was 19 for college.
Nice. Nice. So you just kind
Yeah.
of stuck around ever since
And
then.
then I stuck around. Well, my college band, we like played some festivals. We actually played a very small stage at Bonnaroo. So I sort of
Cool.
had some, I had reasons to stick around LA for sure. Like nothing really broke through like this, like Party with Ray,
Yeah.
but yes, I did not leave. I came here and I didn't I didn't leave.
That's awesome. I think that's encouraging as well. I think a lot of people would look at your project and be like, "Man, he was so successful from the first song." But it's like actually a lot of people don't see the work that's gone in before that project and like all the bands that you were a part of before and all that musical history. I find a lot of artists change their styles a bit and they start this new project which does become successful. It actually has been so many iterations of other stuff before that, so that's really cool to hear. Like I guess the longer version of
Yeah,
your
I think it
journey.
kind of has to be. I have just like a lot of friends, living in a city like this for sure, and
Mm,
there's so much stuff that has to go right, like
yeah,
for people to pay attention to a project, like musically, like from the image, like just the timing of what's going on musically, the kinds of shows that you can play, like who you're connected to, sort of things. Like so, yeah, no, it like definitely makes sense that like you got to figure some stuff out, even just beyond the music being in the right place.
Yeah.
to make a project happen. So yeah, I think a lot of people, you've had to have some practice, had to have some failure,
Yeah.
and like learn from that stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I think definitely even from like the promotion and marketing side of things, not only are you learning to like, write good tunes, but you're also learning to, put yourself out there and having experience with, releasing and obviously you being part of a band and that kind of thing. It's like it puts you in good stead for when, for now. And then all right, I've done a bit of that stuff before. I've released music. I know how this works. So it's like I can actually have some like choice in how I present myself as an artist, on top of just the music itself as well, which is really cool. And I think one thing with you in particular is your name is particularly cool. Like it's a bit different. It's as you described, I think in your bio, it's like hashtagable. Was that like a deliberate thing you did when you came up with the name?
Yeah, well, I mean, the name totally just comes from like not taking itself too seriously. But I think that was
Mm.
like,
Okay, this is Aiden from the future here, and I just wanted to quickly let you know that what you're about to hear/see is actually an earthquake that happened here in Melbourne while I was recording this episode with Party with Ray. It's kind of funny. I decided to leave it in for a bit of a laugh, but you'll see the background starts to shake, and I kind of freak out for a bit, but afterwards we get on track. So yeah, enjoy.
a really important thing for me to stay focused on, because I was like, man, if we're gonna be like DJing, playing like dance music, like it's got to be a party, right? Like, you don't want it to be too serious. So like the name Ray, like Starbucks got my name wrong.
Yo,
Like my
there's an earthquake.
oh
Oh,
okay,
yo,
we can
shit. Hang on.
yeah, no problem.
This is in Australia, man. There's never an earthquake here. Hang on, just let me check my wife. One sec, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yo, sorry, man. That was so trippy.
Wow, no, I could see it. That was seemed pretty big.
Yeah, man. Wow. My wife, because we're near New Zealand, obviously in Australia here, and um, they get earthquakes all the time, but we never normally get them here. So, dude, that was wild.
That is.
um,
I'm glad it's all
s-
good though.
Sweet, man. Yeah, we're
Um,
talking about like it was, inspired by you, like just not taking things too seriously, I think.
yeah. So like so my real name, first name is Freddy.
Yeah.
And I went to Starbucks, and you know how they always get people's names wrong. One time they called me Ray, and like it was just so
Oh,
off. It was
right.
just like, yeah, it was like just weird enough that like me and my friends thought it was funny. It just sort of stuck, and it sort of became like a party alter ego at like a certain point. So it was like an
Nice.
inside joke before I even started DJing. And then once I started like DJing and making this kind of music, I was like, well, that like really fits um, with like the vibe of like what I want to be doing. Um, so yeah, it's really like, I don't, I definitely take like making music seriously and performing seriously and stuff, but like, uh, it's really about having a good time for sure.
That's cool, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, I think a lot of artists when they choose a name, it's like um, sometimes I think yeah, you definitely have to have something that reflects like what like who you are and like what you want to do with your music and like having the fun element of it and just like not taking it too seriously. I think that's really cool because a lot of people do take music too seriously. Sometimes it's like it's music. We're meant to have fun with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I
it
feel
is.
like I did like in my band beforehand, like we,
Yeah.
I feel like learned a lot from that. And like at a certain point in like a few bands, you're trying to like, do something like think of a name. And it's like almost impossible to like sit down and like have a group think about it and everyone's being serious and like come up with something that's actually
Mm,
gonna be cool. Cause like even if it sounds kind of cool, I feel like it's gonna sound like a little like pretentious or like, it sounds like a group of you sat down to like make up a cool name. Like it's so hard to like get something genuine. So I think like
yeah.
a lot of stuff really does have to come from just like a genuine place, whatever that is for each artist.
Totally. I mean, for me personally, like my artist name is Artsy, but it's like a kind of a pun. Like it's semi-serious, semi-joke because it's art and the word like sea, like the ocean, all in one.
Yeah,
And it's kind of like I was it was for me like an experimental phase when I came up with that name, and it's like, oh, like it's kind of also got a bit of humor in it, but yeah. So I think that for me was something that reflected what I wanted it to be. But for each artist, you do need to kind of go out there and find what
Yeah.
that is for you without overthinking it. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, like what I think I didn't realize before when I was younger in the other projects is like you do have to live with it. Like you have to own it. Like whatever the name is, whatever the image is, like you really do have to like be that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be comfortable with it, right? Like it's got to represent you for sure.
Exactly, man. No, that's cool. Um, and then one thing, I guess, so you kind of got into electronic music through the circle you were in. Um, I'm curious because Zoo specifically has been kind of this elusive character, and like definitely someone who has a lot of mystery surrounding them. So how did you actually meet them, and how did that whole process happen?
Well, we went to school together. So when
Oh,
we
wow.
knew yeah, we knew each other. We were both music students in college.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, and we like wrote some stuff before. There's like this old remix he did of my old band. Like it's very funny, like going back and listening. Um, so that was like when we were connected, but like at that time there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of crossover in the styles we were doing, and he wasn't even making stuff like like
Mm.
he makes now. So he was, it takes time to find yourself for sure. I mean, I think that's also part of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, but anyways, when I started like 2018ish is when I started making more electronic leaning stuff like dance house music.
Yeah.
That's when there was like opportunity to for us to actually collaborate. And I think Came for the Low was like the first thing that I showed him also. So it was also,
Yeah.
so yeah, we've just known and I think like when we work, it definitely is beneficial that we can hang out
Mm.
without having to feel this pressure to do something. Cause like,
Yeah.
again, in this sort of like not, like letting things flow, letting things happen, whatever you want to call it. You, like we just sort of hang out and wait till we're inspired, like talk about music, talk about movies, whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
maybe watch some stuff on YouTube,
Nice.
so I do think that and the people that I collaborate with for sure, like having that friendship part helps things like be more open creatively.
That's cool, man. Um, yeah, I totally agree. Like having long term friends who you can write music with, because you understand each other, and you can like understand how people work and their personalities, and there is definitely something special. Like I have a couple friends who I definitely have similar experiences with, even if they're in slightly different genres and stuff like that. It's definitely like something special, especially in comparison to like I guess collaborating with someone over the internet or just someone you haven't really met before. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, getting like real inspiration. Like, I don't think anyone really knows how to can't like snap your fingers and do it. But
yeah,
yeah, like sort of being loose, it like helps for sure
yeah, man.
in the writing session.
I'm interested as well. Like when you kind of transitioned to electronic music, and you just started working with Sue on tunes and sent him came for the low. Like, was there any challenges you experienced, like coming from I guess the more band background, and then getting into maybe the more like electronic side of things? Was there any like challenges there for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think getting into the more sound design aspects
Yeah,
and like really getting good bass drum sounds and kick drum sounds and like things are working together in the mix. I mean, like that was definitely because it's a very different style of mixing than like a band for sure. I mean, the relationship between the kick drum and the bass drum is like super different between a rock
yes.
band and club music, house music.
Mm.
Um, so that definitely was like the biggest challenge. Just something I just keep trying getting better at with every song too. That's
Yep.
what's so cool about this style of music too, is like the sound design is such a big part of it, more so than a band,
Yeah.
that then becomes like this endless journey of you trying new stuff.
Yeah.
So that's something I think is really cool. I would say also just because it's so different from a songwriting standpoint that
Mm.
than like a band, that
Yes.
some of it was hard, but then sometimes it was like kind of easy because I would get really inspired by just doing like a bass line and a kick drum because I hadn't done a lot of it yet, like as a
Yeah.
songwriter. So um yeah, like kind of kicking off, jumping into a new genre, like there was a lot of opportunity like for new inspiration too, for sure.
Mm.
um so that was a good that was like a good part. And then yeah, like mixing and sound design, you definitely got to work on that stuff.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a lot of control you can have as well. You may have noticed, like, so you can control every element. I think, whereas in a band, you kind of you record it, you can do a bit of editing afterwards, but there's a limitation there. But with electronic music, you can just endlessly tweak stuff into
Yeah.
oblivion.
Yeah, and like percussion elements become like hooks, or they can, or
Yeah.
like every element matters so much in house music and more electronic leaning music. Uh
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. That's weird. Like definitely every member of a band is valuable also, but it definitely is like
Sure.
sonically a different thing.
Totally. I think, yeah, Skrillex, who obviously I think had a similar background to what you've come from in bands and stuff like that, and singing. He early on described electronic music as like a platform to write music. It's like it's a whole different world of like being able to manipulate sound and um, yeah, just it's a lot of endless creative possibilities, which is really cool. I think that's why a lot of people end up making the leap from that world.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, there was a feeling of like as I was writing, guitar songs like shortly before jumping into the electronic world, I was like, man, where can I really push this to like make myself really excited? And it was definitely um and then at the same time I was starting to learn Ableton more. And the way
Mm,
you can even like literally even just taking a guitar and recording it into Ableton and then resampling, like
yeah,
pitching it around or like that then sounds like this futuristic thing, and it's like, okay, this is kind of where the new sounds are right now.
yes,
So that yeah, no, he's totally, what he said is totally right. Like the control and the way, I mean, honestly, even the way you can just like take a bass note and reverse it as part of a bass line to like create this feel, you just can't do that with like a live bass player.
yeah, exactly. Reverse snares, reverse percussion into like sweeping
Yeah,
back in, like
yeah.
it is really fun. Um, I do think though, and this is kind of where uh, you know producers like yourself and DJs like yourself who have come from a more traditional songwriting background. I feel like some producers fall into the trap of like just getting so caught up in the details with production. Do you think like, yeah, having that background of songwriting has like, you know, helped a lot in what you're writing now? And like I definitely hear some of those indie influences in your music like that you
Hmm.
mentioned. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I I've like since I started as a like drummer and singer, and then I was a songwriter for a while before I ever started producing. Like I definitely, and I worked at a school for a little while too, so I would
Mm,
talk to students about this. But like listeners, unless they're a producer or like in the industry themselves, like people aren't going to be like, "Oh my god, that snare drum's so awesome," or like, "Oh,
yeah.
they must have spent so long side chaining like that kick." Like people just want to hear, they just hear something and it either like communicates or it doesn't. And
Mm,
like ultimately that's like all I want to be doing in the end. How I get there, I mean, like all the things I've learned about production and songwriting are like helping me get there, but um if I get into a place where like I'm getting super caught up in the details or feel like I can't finish the mix or like whatever it is, like I will take a break from it for sure. Like maybe show it to a friend or something like that, just get some fresh ears, or honestly even like listen like in the room with them so I can see how they react to stuff, and try and regroup that way. But definitely if you're getting caught in the details and you're on like hour 2 of like EQing anything, you should probably just call it.
Yeah, man. And like when you like EQ something one way and then you process it with something else and then you do the reverse EQ later on, it's like you just
Yeah.
like creating extra work
What
for
did I
yourself.
do?
Yeah. I also feel like, yeah, you're so right about feedback. Like when you show it to someone else who like can provide like a more overall objective, like how does the song feel perspective, it's
Mhm.
like sometimes the solution is more simple. Like I'll be tweaking like a snare EQ or something for ages and then they're like, dude, just I don't know, the snare sounds weird, just change the whole thing instead of like making what's already bad try and sound okay.
Yeah.
Just take a simpler solution, you know.
Sound selection is so important. I mean, that was like something I
Mm.
definitely learned like a year in or a year and a half in, was just put a new kick drum in. Like, what do
Yeah.
you don't need to keep EQing. Just you got a bunch of other kick drums in your library.
Yeah.
That's yeah, it's definitely a much better solution most of the time.
Yeah, 100%. That's it's a golden piece of advice, I feel. Um, yeah, man, that's cool. On the topic of production, like as well, yeah. So obviously, a lot of your sound is that kind of slower BPM driving house with a lot of bass influence. In terms of sound design, but you also have these really cool like vocal hooks, like spoken word, or sometimes like sung vocals. Do you normally like start with a vocal hook and build the track around that, or does it kind of come in later in the process? I'm curious because it definitely feels like that's a major part of your sound.
Yeah. It definitely is. And like I would say just like drums, bass, and the vocals are like the core or like the foundation of all the tracks. So
Mm,
I don't necessarily start with any one of those, but
mm,
every song starts with like one of those, one of
yeah,
those three things. And then it's about making them work together to kind of be like one instrument, like
yeah,
just accent each other as much as they can.
yeah,
Um, it's great when like a really catchy vocal phrase like just comes to me and I just like get to like sing it into my phone and then like make a song out of it. But like I'm not so lucky that that happens all the time. So
yeah.
sometimes I got to just make a beat and like get inspired from the beat. So, but definitely always starting with drums, bass, or vocals.
That's cool. So a lot of them are you just recording into your phone and like processing it and stuff.
Some of them,
Yeah,
honestly, like really did like the demo thing recorded into my phone or just into the laptop microphone
yeah,
was better. I tried to re-record. You try to re-record stuff just to see. Um, but they had this quality about them. And then also I'll say with the vocal pitching that I do, the way the vocal ends up sounding after I've pitched it around and affected it is like so specific to how my performance was, and to
right.
like 100% recreate that is like very very difficult.
Yeah,
So then it's also like, well, my first performance was just better.
yeah,
um and then yeah, but then with like saturation EQing, some slight reverb, or maybe like a high layer of reverb, you
mm,
can make it sound um good. And then you can also make like the sort of AM radio lo-fi quality sound very purposeful also.
yes.
So then it's like, all right, well that's like a characteristic now. So then it's you kind of make it work for yourself.
Mm. I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I've heard a lot of producers come on. I think I was talking to, I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy called Jafunk. He kind of makes like funky, soulful, slow kind of music, house
Okay.
music. And I was talking to him, and he also sometimes just records stuff on his phone and processes it in Ableton and stuff like that. And it's I think maybe it's like a almost rebellion against the perfection of like other processing techniques. It's sometimes nice to throw in something that's a little more raw. I feel like it's also like once you throw something in and it's in the tune, you kind of get attached to the way it sounds, and you're like, I just kind of want to keep it in there. Like, it's definitely a factor.
Totally, yeah, and you definitely have to be careful of that also, like demoitis or,
Yeah.
just getting attached to the way it sounded. Um, but I think like as a, starting like, as a singer in the studio and now being more of a producer, like the performance, it like definitely is the most important thing. So if you're just
Mm,
like loose, vibing into your phone, you get like a good rhythm, or like you're just the way you enunciate things just like has this looseness. Um, or like just this genuine performance, like, and then you go into the booth, put the headphones on, you're like, all right, I'm gonna do it for real now. Without trying it all, you can kind of like get in your own head and like try too hard, or you know so yeah, if you just capture that performance that you need, and it
mm.
just happens to be the first like demo take you did, then um, just being able to recognize that like is definitely helpful, because it can be that first one, but a lot of people do re-record stuff in multiple takes and things like that too.
For sure. It's also like for me personally, real quick, why I have my microphone obviously set up for like podcasts like this, so I can record my voice. But it's also nice because I can just record into this mic, and for me, I can do it while I'm sitting down and producing, and I actually feel like I don't overthink it then, and I just sing based on the feel. And I'm still experimenting with singing. Like I've been on and off with my voice ever since I started producing music, and I'm not sure if I want to sing on my tracks or not. But I do feel like having the right mindset when you sing is absolutely crucial. And if you overthink it, which I often do, you don't actually end up sounding as good as you want to. So that's
Yeah,
huge.
singing's hard. I mean, singing's
Yeah.
definitely a mind game.
Mm,
Yeah, so there's definitely something to that.
totally, man. Um, Awesome. I want to move back to Came for the Low for a little bit. Um, One thing I didn't realize about that track, and I discovered when I was doing research for this episode, is and I actually hadn't watched this yet, it's actually on my Netflix to watch list, so this is why I
Oh,
hadn't realized this. But yeah, it got in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is I think
yeah.
a really really cool achievement for you guys, for both you and Zoo. Do you want to dive into how that like sync deal came around, and yeah, what was that process like?
Well, it was crazy that it
Mm,
happened.
yeah,
I'm a huge Marvel fan, so that was like really out of left. So basically, I like they just asked us. Like, I don't think we can. I don't know who's big enough to really be pitching. Like, Marvel is just so big. Like, I
yeah,
think they probably got to ask you. So they reached out to us. Like, luckily, I mean, I think it was definitely connected with like the city was called Lowtown
mm,
in the scene, so there was a connection there. But the vibe of the song definitely fit the scene really well too. Um, so yeah, we got the offer. I of course was like this, like 100%. Like I'm really obsessed with Marvel stuff. Um, and like the night, and then like there's a couple weeks you're like, all right, it might happen, it might not. Then you find out that it is happening, and then you're like, well, I wonder how like prominent it's gonna be. Like maybe it'll just be in the background, like people won't even really notice, like whatever. And then it ended up being like a pretty big part of this club scene, and like that scene got turned into a meme
yeah,
with Zemo, and it was very surreal. I mean, like, and me and Zoo are officially part of the MCU. Like, we're on the MCU Wikipedia or like wiki page, which is like very surreal to me, also because, like
crazy.
I said, I'm a pretty big fan. So that was just so cool. And that was like coming out of the pandemic was very hard, for pretty much everybody.
Mm,
Um, Took away a lot of momentum, like tour dates, things like that. So that Marvel sync came like sort of as things were just starting to open back up here, like maybe a month or two before, like some shows,
Yeah,
so that was just so cool.
that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy in being in the because that's where I came across it was like the MCU like wiki or whatever was like, oh, your name's actually in there. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
Um,
nuts.
that's really cool. I also think a lot the funny thing is about that is a lot of the time like with as you mentioned, it's really hard to like pitch a company like Marvel like what the heck, how are you going to ever get your tune on something like that? But oftentimes like it's when your music connects with a person and that person maybe just happened to work at Marvel and was like, oh, I heard this song the other day. We should use it for this scene that's coming up. Like those kind of things can happen. Um, I think like as artists, we create like fans, but we never know who those fans are. That fan could be some person who runs this thing or runs that thing, and
Yeah.
maybe that was the reason the opportunity came around. Who actually knows in the end, I guess, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I like right out of college, I worked at a publishing company actually,
Mm,
part time, and like we, my boss just used to be like, I was like, "What's the best thing you can do to get like your song placed?" He was like, "Have a hit song." I
mm.
was like, "All right." I mean, that does make sense. Like,
Yeah.
so like a real like you definitely got to be out there working your music. You got to have like a team, or if it's just you, whatever it is, like you definitely got to be promoting yourself,
Mm.
promoting the music, but you really want like the music trying to be making music that does connect with people to a level where they'll want to use your music for things, or they want to come to the shows, like all that. So um yeah, that. But I think Marvel's like, you're right, like Marvel's definitely just so big that it's like I don't know how you could really. I mean, there's some artists that are big enough for sure, but you got to be pretty big.
Yeah. That's so cool. I think I remember a similar thing back in I can't remember the name of the movie now. I think it was like a Disney or Pixar movie, but Skrillex was in it and he was actually in the movie DJing. It was like an animated
Oh,
movie.
that's
All
cool.
I remember is this big monster dude and it's like in a video game kind of movie. I can't remember what it was. Um
Oh, that might have been. I haven't seen it. That sounds like Wreck It Ralph,
Yeah,
though.
yeah, that was it. Wreck It Ralph.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, similar thing. Like I guess actually being in his song was in it, but he was actually in it too, which is
Yeah. And
which
it's
is kind
really
of
cool.
cool.
I mean, the thing that becomes like cool and sort of trippy about that is like you then like are real in a world that's not real. Like you're in
Mm,
this like you're like a character but yourself sort of in this world. Like it is overall it's just cool though. Before I get
yeah,
too trippy about it.
yeah, yeah. It is, man. Oh, that's so cool. Um, and then moving on from I guess that tune, you had you've had a couple other releases, and you've had your most recent EP come out, which is Party Starters. So that's like your first non-single release, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I did a 2-song release like way like right before the pandemic, so that
Yeah,
sort of got pushed under the rug by the pandemic. But yeah, this is my first, like four. This is a 4-song EP, so it's the biggest collection I put out so far for sure.
that's cool. What made you want to do EP instead of just another single?
Um, I think like because I I am an artist. Like I
Hmm.
am a house producer, electro, tech, whatever, these sort of couple different styles, but I also am an artist. So I like really want to, and as live shows have, I got to play Red Rocks back in May and like sort of start to bring people into my world with the live show. It just felt like a good time to put out a little bit bigger body of work to allow people that want to dive deeper to be able to dive deeper and see that like I definitely am creating a world for us all to party in, basically.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you find I definitely like the having a more holistic body of work to present like as much as I think singles are definitely the market we're in for music these days. It's something nice about releasing an EP or an album even still. And I think a lot of artists definitely want to aspire to still do that because there is that something special about it. Do you think you were able to kind of on this release experiment a bit more with like different, maybe corners of your sound in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, One Bump is a mid-tempo track, and then Smile Like Aaliyah is has a bit of like a UK breakbeat, as
Mm,
well as a house beat in the chorus. But like those were two songs. Whereas like so Lil Mama and then Good Bad Boy, the first two kind of more have just more straight ahead house beats. One Bump and Smile Like Aaliyah, I felt like wouldn't have made a lot of sense like if I just put them out as singles and like that was it.
yeah.
It would have been I think that like like tying them into Lil Mama and Good Bad Boy, it's like, okay, he is this, more DJ leaning house type producer, but I do expand into, other styles of electronic music and some different tempos.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I do think it makes a lot more sense to do it on an EP. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely the format has more option because you're right, there are tracks that I feel you can release that you wouldn't normally release as singles just because they don't necessarily fit the single context.
Yeah.
But yeah, a track, some of those tracks can definitely work on an EP, and yeah, it allows you to have that more creative freedom, I suppose.
Yeah. It is
And
like the expectations too, like you just said, like the expectations of a single. People put kind of a lot of weight. It's like, oh, this is your sound now.
mm,
And with an EP, it's like, well, this is part of my sound. This is like part of what I do.
that's so true. Yeah. And then obviously like the kind of standout track on that EP is Lil Mama. Was there any particular process that you had for that track that you did, or how did that one in particular come around?
That one did start with the vocal.
Okay,
That was
cool.
one of the few where like that, hey, little mama, won't you come in next to me? Like that. I don't know if I was like leaving a club one night or what. I wrote it like early on, and I wrote it around the same time as Came for the Low, actually.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, so then I had that vocal, pitched it down. That was kind of one of the first times, honestly, it may have been the first time I figured out the vocal style also, where I sing slash rap kind of monotone, and
Mm.
then I pitch it down altogether, and then from there, like pitch it around to create a little bit of a melody, so it's not literally just monotone.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
and then it also makes the voice sound a little bit different because it's not like me going, "Hey, little mama, won't you come in next to me?" It's like Ableton's pitching tool is creating that tonal change, which
Yes.
sounds different. So that definitely started with the vocal like that, and then it was like, all right, just let me just create a bass line that like brings this vocal out.
Mm.
Um, and then actually when I showed it to Zoo, he actually took like one or two notes out. Like my bass line was a little bit busier, and he
Right.
took like one or two notes out because like the space in the drop is like just so cool.
Yes.
So that was just part of that process for sure.
Yeah, it's funny how subtracting things is like adding. It like makes a big difference. Sometimes you need to
Mhm.
remove notes or remove layers, and it actually just has room to breathe. Because that definitely is one thing that stands out to me about that track is the sense of space and just epicness. Maybe is like when the bass comes in the vocal, it's just like so solid and catchy. You don't really need to add anything to it. So, um, yeah, that's really interesting actually.
Yeah, and like things can just be bigger, like when there's space.
Mm,
Um, just in all styles. Like it was like something that like the Edge from U2 said about his guitar playing. Like he plays like really simple chords. He just plays like octaves, like very few notes in a chord, but then he can like turn the delay way up, turn the distortion up, and it
Mm,
still sounds like clean, but it just sounds so massive. Like there is like
yes.
you really do have to keep things simple to like make something really big.
Yeah, it's yeah, I definitely think even from like a technical standpoint, when you just put too much sound in a mix, it just everything just turns to mush. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't sound good. Like the more you add, the less space there is for each element, and it just yeah, it doesn't really work.
I used to talk about it like I don't like paint a lot, but I think you know how like when you're painting and you mix colors too much, it turns like to poot like brown,
Yeah,
like looks like shit. It's like that's what mixing is. Like when you have too much stuff, it like literally turns to shit.
yeah,
Uh, and like yeah, you gotta have space for all your instruments.
that's so true. Wow, I love that analogy. Yeah, brown paint is when you add too many
Yeah,
layers in. Yeah. Oh man, there's been a few. You've had a few good one-liners like demo-itis. I feel like when you mentioned that as well, I was like, yeah, I have demo-itis a lot. Where it's
yeah.
just like, oh man, I've listened to this track too many times. And I'm too attached to the form it's in. Like, yeah, there's a few good analogies like
It
that.
happened, dude. You
Yeah,
really do have to just take time from stuff. Like yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah, man. It's good. Awesome, man. So yeah, you've had that come out, that EP. Um, I suppose going forward now, like you've mentioned before we started recording that you have a few shows coming up. Um, one is Escape in October. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so this is Insomniac's big Halloween festival in Southern California, and it's my first main stage play, which is very,
Congrats.
very cool. So I'm playing on the main stage at 5 p.m. on Saturday,
Awesome.
the 30th, and I don't know. I just feel so honored to be on the main stage. Like the lineup is crazy. You know, the people that I'm playing on that stage with, and um, you know, going to college here, like in LA, like Escape was just like such a big deal. So I'm very, very excited about that for sure.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm finalizing my costume now. That's like the last piece of because it's a Halloween festival. I gotta have a good costume that still looks fashionable. You know.
Awesome, awesome. We'll let everyone who's going to go to that show wait to see what that is because that'll be exciting. Oh, awesome, man! That'll be fun. And then you've got another one also in October with Black Caviar on the 2nd in San Francisco at Temple. Um, yeah, do you want to tell
Yeah.
us a bit about that one as well? I mean, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so this was a show. Black Caviar and I had a couple shows scheduled, right before the pandemic hit. So this was one of those that has finally been rescheduled, and
yeah,
yeah, San Francisco Temple. I haven't been to that club before, but San Francisco is like such a dope city for house music and dance music, and um, it's definitely going to be a great show. I think like Black Caviar, musically, Black Caviar and I like definitely fit together, so it's gonna be a fun night.
mm, yeah.
Just looking forward to really happy to be playing in San Francisco. It's my first time as Party with Ray playing in San Francisco, so I know there's a couple people I'm gonna see out, so it'll be very cool.
Awesome, man. I'll leave as many details as possible for both those in the show notes so people can go check them out if you're in the California region. Definitely go
Yeah.
see those. Apart from those two, what are you kind of planning over the next, 6 to 12 months? Like, do you have any ideas or goals or plans that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean now it's just like onto the next song in a couple weeks or months, whatever. I mean they would definitely put a lot into this EP release, so we're gonna let it
Yeah,
sit for a little while, and we got a couple videos coming out. Um but yeah, no, I got like a couple remixes I'm really into. There's a couple new songs I have that we're just, figuring out when to put them out, who to put them out with.
yep,
Um and that, that, and then just there'll be more shows, early 2022. I mean, we'll see, fingers crossed, everything with COVID keeps, getting better. But
Yeah.
um, I'm very, very excited. Like, just in general, the live show, I think not being able to do it for so long, like
Yeah.
I Came for the Low came out just a few months before the pandemic, so I never really got to play a lot of shows and like develop
Mm.
the live vocals that I'm doing now with the DJing, like that's part
Oh,
of
awesome.
my live show. So then at Red Rocks back in May, we got to do this full live show setup for the first time, where I have like, a mic set up at the front of the stage. So I sort of, I'm DJing, but then I come up and I become like a front man of like an
Awesome.
indie band, or whatever, just of a band.
Yeah.
And like perform the songs on the mic. I have a really cool vocal effects pedal, actually,
Yeah.
the Roland VT4.
Ah, sick. Nice.
Great for what I'm doing, just pitch shifting and some auto tune.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I got to do that full live setup at Red Rocks. I mean, it was a great stage, big stage to do it on. And I've gotten to do it a couple more times. We'll do it at the festival, so I'm definitely just looking forward to developing that more, because that's definitely a big part of the project.
Totally, man. And having that, distinctive element about a live show, even like, and you don't have to make it complicated. Like you can still have it very DJ based, like, you are doing yourself. That can be, just nice. People remember that little extra nice thing about it. That's really cool to hear that you're doing your vocals live as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely like I was the singer in the bands that I used to be in, and I was the
Yeah.
frontman. So I was like, why can't I do this? And then I was
Yeah.
like, well, I think I think I can. uh,
Totally.
and and then it worked. Like the crazy thing about the Red Rock show is like I had never done it like that before. I had done a different version like 2 or 3 times in clubs with like the mic right next to me at the DJ booth, but it
Yeah.
wasn't really what I was hoping it would be. It didn't. I felt like we needed to make more of a thing, like a moment of me like coming out from behind the decks and becoming a singer,
Yeah.
type of thing. And yeah, for Red Rocks, I was like, really have no idea how this is. Is this going to be received well? Is it going to be like weird? And then like it definitely came together in the way I was hoping, where it's like you're DJing, you're connecting with people with the music, and then just for a moment you come up and you get like a little closer to the audience. You can like talk to them, sing a little bit, and it definitely feels to me like it adds, a little more connection to the crowd.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that, man. Um, Sweet. Well, everyone who's going to going to that show will, those shows will have something to look forward to. That's awesome. Awesome, man. I have one last question. And this is kind of something I'm asking everyone who comes on the show at the moment, and it is a
Mhm.
little controversial, but in terms of like, I believe, when we, grow as artists and stuff like that, we all make mistakes, and we all learn from those mistakes. But if there was one thing, if you had a time machine, if there's one thing you could
Mhm.
go back and change, what do you think that would be for you?
Uh, I think it was like something to do
It's a
with
bit
just
hard. Sorry. So you feel
yeah,
free to
no, no,
take
no,
your
no, no.
time.
I really like it. I
Yeah.
think it's a good, because it's important. Like I was, you got to learn from failure for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I would say for me, I had this innocence coming into the music industry, where like I just genuinely love music. I loved playing music, and like I was like, oh, like just peace and love. Just make music, be happy, and like people will connect with, or let's say business people will work with artists that they really believe in, and then it's like, no, like ultimately like this thing has to make money somehow, or like
Yeah.
connect with an audience to a level where they will pay to hear the music, pay to come to shows. And like there was some heartbreak that I felt early on when like I faced rejection, not understanding that it wasn't that people were saying like, you're a terrible songwriter, you're a terrible frontman, like whatever it is. It's like literally like, we don't think we can sell this right now.
Right.
And that might be the music. It might be the way you look. It might be the band around you. It might be that people aren't listening to indie rock right now, like whatever it is. So just don't let that kind of stuff get to you as much as what I would have said to myself is like,
Yeah.
don't let that kind of thing break down your confidence as an artist or as a songwriter, producer. Cause it's not even about that necessarily.
Wow. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice for budding artists out there. Definitely. Wow. Well, this has been a great interview, man. I hope
Thanks
you've
for
been
having
enjoying
me.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I love talking about this kind of thing. Definitely what I do most of my days. So
Sweet, man. Lastly, where can people find you online, like, social handles and stuff?
my Instagram is partywithray, just at partywithray. And my Twitter is partywithray DJ. There's some really cool woman out there, named Ray, who had Party with Ray also, which is totally cool. So I have Party with Ray DJ on Twitter,
Yeah.
and my Facebook's just Party with Ray.
Cool.
And same with Spotify.
Sweet, man. I'll
Yeah.
leave those all in the description, and I'll leave a link for everyone to go check out Party Starters as well. Yeah, man. Well, once again, yeah, this has been so much fun. Thanks for jumping on.
Dude, yeah, again, thanks for having me. Everyone go check out the music.
Yeah.
And come party with me live whenever I'm in your city for sure.
Great, man.